Hello, YouTube. My name is Jason. I'm an alchemist, and this is Grounded Roots Healing. I wanted to talk about how there are themes to our lives, to the lessons that our lives are built around. At least the first parts before we awaken. The awakening part of this is like a grounding process of grounding all those lessons in. But before I do that, I have a booking process now that you can now go into my description of this video and book a 30-minute or 1-hour session with yours truly, and I can conduct alchemy, or we can just have a meet and greet or whatever you'd like. It's in the description down below, and I look forward to meeting you all. So I was setting this up over the last couple days, trying to expand this part of my business. It's not much of a business as of yet, but I have aspirations to turn this into some sort of business where I can make a living trying to help. It's not really helping, and this I'll get to this, but so why do I say it's not really helping? Well, because you can't help anyone through their lesson. So I've started looking at this whole process as like getting a university degree, and it translates quite well. So like school in general, high school, middle school, all of this, all the way through until we get to the point where we've finished this education process and we've learned something about some difficult thing, or at least perceived to be difficult. So I'll use myself as an example because that's the one I know the most intimately, obviously. And if I were to look at the theme of my life, of what the always pervasive, always in the background challenge that I had was, it would be loneliness, sadness, or depression, otherwise known as. At least that's what it looks like on the outside. So this loneliness, sadness, and never feeling safe was a way to make you isolated. Me, isolated. In this lesson plan that I'm here on this planet to learn. So I started looking at it that way. Why was this always here? And it always seemed like every single thing that happened in my life served to isolate me. So I was born into a family with, let's say, what would you say? Dysfunctional. So I had a lot of exposure to things in my childhood that I shouldn't have. What I later learned out, I have autism. I don't believe it's a label that I really need to apply to myself, but it is a way, or a way of being that is typically described as having difficulties communicating with people, or getting your point across, feeling isolated, never feeling like you have that person that you can connect really with. And it's been pervasive in my entire life. So now I can look back at my entire life and see that it was set up as a lesson plan for me to major in loneliness, disconnection. I had everything was designed that way. And every reaction that someone in my life had was directed to keep me isolated. Even to the point where the way I had my awakening was designed to happen. So it happened abruptly. overnight. I went to full enlightenment from zero. Never really having had any spiritual experiences to full on, overnight. Always having that unsureness about, is there a God, isn't there a God? Never having those direct experiences. I had hints and things happen where it certainly pointed in that direction, but I had to use my monkey mind to come to a conclusion that yes, there is a God. I never had the direct experience of anything like that. What would you call ghosts or anything supernatural? Nothing. So I had to, and what would be the point of that? If I hadn't been completely disconnected from the spirit realm, let's say, I would have not felt alone. So the joke of all of this is we come down here to learn these lessons, and then they put blockers over us in order to isolate us and make us feel the way we have to feel. So maybe, I'm certain most of you, your lesson would have been different. The suffering, we refer to it as, would be different. But for me, this is what it was. Friends always just drifting away. Never, always saying the wrong thing at the wrong time to offend somebody and have them go, and never have that connection, that deep connection with someone. It all makes sense. So I've graduated. I see through it now. I've learned all I can about loneliness and sadness and depression and not feeling safe. They always have to be just on the, like, struggling financially. Not maybe you're okay, but you got to just keep working, because you're never going to be safe, ever. No matter what happens, it always seems like the money would just drain away. Because I needed to be in that position as much as possible, because I was going for the doctorate, probably a postdoc. I'm a professor of this. I had to stay asleep until I was 46 and a half, 47 years old before the awakening clicked. Full on clicked. Where I can get relief from this and start the process of integrating back into my divinity, let's say. Where I could go from being a fully asleep human, heal the body from all the damage and the lessons, heal the mind from all the trauma, this mind-body complex, and then start integrating my light back in and have the experience that I should be having as a light being down here on earth. So this realization came to me in the shower. But, other people have had other experiences, but I can see the same pattern. So someone dear to me has had a issue. Well, there's many people I can pick from, but we'll use this one. Issue with failure, a fear of failure. So like I said, I had an issue of being afraid all the time. Not afraid. Well, sort of. Being lonely, which made you afraid, of course. And the joke is that I've never been alone for a second in my life. There's entities around me all the time. They're here right now. They're cheering me on. I feel their presence now. I wasn't allowed to feel it before because I needed to experience that depth of loneliness. So I can use this to explain it to other people, but not cure. We can't cure this. At what point in that history could anyone have helped me through that to make me feel less lonely? There was no moment. I needed to be there. I needed to have that lack of permanent connection and that difficulty in expressing myself in order to experience that, so that I can get to the point where I understand it deeply. because I'm taking this lesson back to source. I'm here to experience that, and I'm supposed to take it back. It's already back there. The information's up. They understand. But I took this one for the team. So, like I said, there's someone dear to me who has the fear of failure. So in that person's life, there was not a ton of failure, but there was always the pressure from family members who were important to them. Different traumatic things happened in the person's life so that they had this fear of failure at all times. And then it's reinforced by your parents and your siblings. And then society reinforces it. And there's no amount of me or anyone else telling that person that you can't fail, because it's all destined to happen the way it's supposed to happen. So this person spent their entire life afraid to fail, when in reality, nothing can change. But in order to understand the fear of failure, you need to think that you're not divine, you're not God, and you could fail. So the system gets rigged. The veil goes over. You can't see that you can't fail. There's a block there. Until the veil gets lifted and you start to understand it, you've never made a mistake in your life. Ever. It was all divinely planned. It was all divinely set up this way so that we can experience the depths of fear of failure. Now this sounds perverse, but every single one of us is a fractal of God, filtered through this mind-body complex, placed in these family structures and situations to experience that depth of that separation, of that thing that you can't experience as God on the other side. So everybody I know has had something. Now here's your challenge. Think about your life and think about that pervasive thing that's been sitting there and has been the theme of your life. That is your major. That's what you majored in. Here's the kicker. It's all bullshit. You have a veil over your eyes so that you can't see that that was for a purpose. The next thing is that you realize you've never made a mistake in your life. This was all choreographed, was all set up in order to experience that. If this is why you had to stay asleep, or else you wouldn't go through with any of this stuff. Now, like every university degree, it's a ton of work. If you knew at the end what you had, if you knew at the beginning how much work it was really going to be, you might not want to do that. You might not want to complete a PhD with an 8-year degree, post-secondary degree, with all the high school and middle school and all of that stuff. But when you flip that tassel over on your cap and you get that diploma in your hand, it's a rush and it feels like it's all been worth it. You forget about all the sleepless nights and the studying and the exams and the papers and the dissertations. It's an infinite amount of work, but it all becomes worth it because now you're an expert in that topic. Now, if you're an expert in that topic, what can you do with that? So like I said, I'm a professor of depression. I understand it so intimately, so deeply, that I can explain it to other people of the why. And I think a big part of the why is this understanding that there's nothing you could have done differently. You wrote this before, you had to go through the whole process, but it's over. It's over when you have that realization. You're God. You're the consciousness. You're not this body-mind complex. This is just a vehicle. So that download came to me today. And it came to me. So I'm sitting here. I'm trying to use my monkey mind, which you do have to use. You got to survive in this world. So I was setting up software for the booking. And as you do this, your monkey mind gets enthralled in something. A lot of times your consciousness falls away to the back, and the monkey mind's steering, which is a vulnerable position to be in. So your mind-body complex, you're letting it do what it needs to do to get this software integrated with the Stripe account so that you can get payments from the blah, 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 blah. Build an atom bomb, as Eckhart Tolle likes to say. It has a bone to chew on, and it's working. But what happens is it seems to think it's in control again. So you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable to attack. If you get a disparaging YouTube comment, like what happened to me, it can draw you in, and you can say nasty things to people because you're saying it from a unenlightened space, let's say. And I didn't say anything nasty, but I did notice that I was getting a bit surly or annoyed. And then I realized, and I stated this in these comments, that nothing is by accident. Remember? So that comment was not by accident. Now the commenter was frustrated because I had used he to reference God, which I accidentally did. Accidentally? No accidents. So why did it happen? That's the first thing I started to think about. I said it to trigger whoever that is, if it's not a bot or just the universe triggering me, but to trigger that person to think inwardly. Hopefully. Or someone else to read the exchange and understand what I'm talking about. But there is definitely a reason. There always is. I used he accidentally, which I know God is genderless, and it's both masculine and feminine, of course. But I use it because what often happens is I hear it in that voice. Why would that be? Because I'm masculine. I'm God. I'm hearing myself in the end. So it presents itself in something that the way it makes sense to me. I know it's not a he. It's okay. So I used it. This person took offense. But it got me thinking, there's never an accident. So that comment section may lead to someone else commenting on my videos, subscribing, and then someone else sees it because of that. Do you see how intricate this is? There are no accidents. None. So if you start to think about life that way, you're free. This is when you're free. You've escaped this. You've graduated. You've flipped the tassel, like I said. And it's time to move on to whatever this is. So, going around trying to fix people, do you see why this won't work? You can't fix anyone. You can't change anyone. They have to go through the lessons that they're here to learn. They have to experience it. It's painful to watch when you see loved ones going through difficult things and you know the answers to it. But it doesn't matter. You don't get to change anything for them. What you're here to do is to be a listening ear and to give them love. Give them love and understanding. And then hopefully it's time for them to figure out what I've figured out at this point. So what do? You can't save anyone. I'm being an alchemist on YouTube. I'm explaining this stuff, and with any luck, there will be a whole lot of people that have reached where I am, and my video here will push you over the edge so that you now understand the depth of this, that there's nothing you can change except yourself. You're making all of this. You did this all to yourself. You're God. It's all for lessons. There's nothing you can change. Let go. Let go. I think I'll leave it there. Like I always say, I hope this video finds you well. I love you all, and we'll see you soon. And also, book some time with me down below. You can get 30-minute or 1-hour sessions, or you can go over to my Patreon channel. I post over there every day. Love you guys.